I say what ho, this is Brian, call me the New Orleans Queen who sure knows how to schmooze it Gardner, coming to you from Ramble On Tower's Dungeon Studio in scenic Hespeler, Ontario. And you are listening to Ramble On Radio episode number 58. Ramble On Radio is the only dedicated Led Zeppelin podcast on this or any other known internets. Be sure to go to rambleonradio.com for all your Led Zeppelin news and any links I mentioned during the show. You can subscribe to Ramble On Radio through iTunes. If you're on iTunes, if you go to iTunes, leave a review, give us a rating and a review. It kind of moves you. The more you get, it kind of moves you up the search lists. You can listen on Spreaker. That's speaker with an R, SPREAKER.com. And if you do, be sure to follow Ramble On Radio. Well, just follow me. It's Ramble On Radio. You can search for that, or I Am Brian Dammit. And also check out I Am Brian Dammit on YouTube. You can listen to the podcast there, although I fooled a while back with video on the podcast and rolling that way and putting it on YouTube, and it didn't, it was just way too much work, and it's outside of the things that I know how to do well, so it became a frustration really fast. So it is there. The Spreaker uploads it automatically if you know you're at work and you just want to throw it on YouTube, but you can go that way too. You can follow me, Ramble On Radio, on Facebook. We have a page, Google+, and at Ramble On Blog on Twitter. And I do try to respond to stuff on Facebook and Twitter. Although I have a full-time job that has lots of overtime, and I have a busy family life and getting busier some days, it seems. So I'm not always quick, or I'm not always good about getting back, but I try, and I do read it all, and I do appreciate all your comments. If I don't get back to you, it's just a case of it is just what it is. It's not that I don't appreciate it, or that I'm hopefully it's not that I'm being thoughtless. It's things get ahead of me sometimes. This week, everything got ahead of me. You would not believe this week is like, oh, good Lord. We're doing new carpet upstairs. So we're ripping apart, half the house at a time, new carpet in. That's one night. The next night you put it all back. Then the next night you rip out the other half of the house, which we did tonight. And then you put it all back. Meanwhile, all this stuff is rolling down the pike. Plus my dad has been here all week. We've had my dad visiting with us. And we're selling his house, and it's gone next week. So we've been spending a lot of time cleaning out the last of his stuff and doing all that. And even Saturday, I'm up at 4:30. I'm going to be going to work for 4 hours. At 10:30, I will go to his house. We will finish cleaning out the last of the furniture and stuff. And then my brother and I are driving to Buffalo to see Get the Lead Out. So, there's no rest on a Saturday. Thank God for government construction. They're ripping apart a bridge down part where I live, and the highway, the 401 is going to be closed going past our house. I won't be able to go anywhere Sunday, so that's everybody's out of luck if they want my time. But anyway, that's my way of saying, boy, we have a lot of stuff this week. And you heard it, the intro, I'm in the mood for a melody. Like Robert Plant, I'm in the mood for a melody. But here's a question. If you're Jimmy Page, did you watch? That was from Robert Plant's New Orleans show. It was on one of the American stations. You can now watch it on YouTube, which is where I recorded that little bit of I'm in the mood from. And if you're Jimmy Page, did you sit back, watch it, put your feet up, and then go, wait a minute. How come Robbie Blunt's guitar parts get played as the record But my songs sound like nothing. How come Whole Lot of Love sounds like this whole other song? But Robbie Blunt gets the note-for-note treatment. And the answer is, I don't know. It is an oddity that I'm in the Mood seems to be the only sacred song in the Robert Plant catalog in terms of how it must be played. Oh, no, you got to play those notes. But Whole Lot of Love, nobody will notice. Nobody will notice. Who cares? Black Dog, nobody knows that lick. No. Just play any old thing. I'll sing. It's good. So, I don't know. I don't. Robbie done. I guess Robbie's in the good books this week. But anyway, it's actually a good show. It was a good watch. Not that I haven't actually seen all of it. I've been making dinner and watching it. Kind of have it on while I'm making dinner over in the corner there. And the last, today, I got about 40 minutes through the hour of it. So it's a good little show. He's sounding good. He's in good voice. He is singing a little more rocky than he has in the past. That'll die again. There's been a number of interviews, and I've only, I've seen a few. I've missed a few, but I've picked up some quotes here and there. And apparently, one he talks about he's looking at doing something with Alison Krauss again. So there goes that rock stuff. I guess it's back to whispering and what have you. We have a quote later where he talks about he doesn't. The Eagles do what they did or whatever it was, did the whole hell freezes over thing because they're bored. That's not for the money. They're bored musically, and he says, "I'm not bored." I got news for Robert Plant. That's really naive. Don Henley does it for the money. Never mind. Don Henley had a good little solo career going. He did it for the money and for no other reason. Glenn Frey did it because nobody gave a rat's ass about Glenn Frey without the Eagles at the end of the day. But anyway, Robert says he's not bored. And, I guess not when you're moving around as much as he is and doing. He's still active, and you got to like that. But like I say, there is, in all seriousness, I'm not sure whether I'm doing today's podcast because I have so much to say about everything that's happened in the last week, or because I have to say it now before I get farther behind. There's just so much, and I have missed so much of it. So let's get straight at it. Let's just talk. First off, I was a week off, or maybe we should put it this way. Whole Lot of Love, the remix with vocals, was released on Zeppelin time. I said it would be 2 weeks after the communication breakdown, Good Times, Bad Times from the Paris show. That was what I had heard. I had said it would be 2 weeks after. It was 3 weeks after. So it was 2 weeks Led Zeppelin time is what happened. But yeah, it's now out there. On Monday, it hit The Guardian, which the same thing happened with the communication breakdown. And the Guardian newspaper had it on their website. A few other English sites had it. People were posting it online, and all of us in America and Canada were going, I can't read it. And finally, one turned up where you could actually hear it. And then the next day, it was available for sale, $1.29 on iTunes, Amazon, Spotify. If you're not Canadian, you can listen to it, stream it on Spotify. And I'm telling you, Spotify's in trouble. If I ever get that submarine broken free from that ice back there, first place I'm going, Spotify World Headquarters, and we're going to talk about this non-Canadian issue. Because Spotify is not, they're like worldwide, but not in Canada. It's just one of those, and we get a lot of that down here, up here, and it drives you crazy. But anyway, you can listen to a whole lot of. So what is it? If you haven't had a chance to hear it yet, it is the backing track is the actual backing track from guitar, bass, drums from the album from Led Zeppelin 2. No overdubs. Vocally, it's different. Vocally, Plant is kind of feeling his ground. It almost one of the interviews talked about he sounds almost tentative or nervous at this stage of the game. Actually, interestingly, I think he sounds more like what he does later. he doesn't, instead of singing the chorus as you know it, he just kind of does some other stuff. He lets the chorus go sometimes, or he sings some other lines, and he just kind of runs in there with something quick. In other words, he doesn't do verse, chorus, bridge, verse, chorus. Musically, it's verse, chorus, bridge. But he, as a singer, he leaves the choruses alone. He backs off a bit. He doesn't sing whole verses. And it's a little closer to kind of how they wrote songs later on. It's a bit of a telegraph of what's coming that way. That he doesn't bother just, okay, quick, get the verse or get the chorus in. So I would almost argue it's the opposite. It's confidence. Once he gets more confidence, he starts doing different stuff vocally on the albums that he wasn't doing in that second album. So it's not that he's not confident for the remaster. It's the vocals are kind of timid and unconfident. It's almost like a lack of confidence to really stretch the song out the way he wanted to. I would say is almost how that sounds to me. But it's really bare bones. There's no, like I said, there's no overdubs, there's no slide guitars, and what you really get a feel for is the groove of that song. That song's got a funky groove, and it kind of gets a bit buried under all the noise and all the stuff going on sometimes. And in this one, it's just bare bones, just the trio playing, and it's really funky. It's really get down. It grooves beautifully, and it gives you an idea of just how, at its heart, that song is a great groove song, and then everything is built on top of that groove. So I kind of like it, and it's maybe got me changing my mind a bit on buying the Led Zeppelin 2 Deluxe. I was kind of, I looked at the stuff on that, and I thought, I'm not so sure there's anything there that interests me. But listening to that, I'm maybe a little more interested now. Hell, who are we kidding? I'm going to buy it, right? We know that's going to happen. I imagine first off, I'll end up buying it on iTunes, and then we'll go from there. I'll get the 1 and 3 on LP as deluxe editions. The second one, we'll see what happens after that. Well, speaking of a whole lot of love, Robert Plant played a charity soccer match, and he took penalty kick, and I'm not sure exactly what the charity was, and I'm not sure exactly what the reason for the match was, and I think I read somewhere that it wasn't actually a soccer match, as they did penalty kicks. They all kind of lined up and took penalty kicks. It was for charity. But he had, on the back of his shirt, he had a whole lot of love. Because Robert doesn't want to just live in the past. Yeah, I know. I'm not being fair on the guy. But yeah, that was interesting. As it was the day they were releasing a whole lot of love, maybe that's why he did it. Maybe he was throwing that in there. Maybe because it's charity, he decided, I'm going to play up the song people love. But it is odd that he talks so much about, I'm not doing that. I don't want to be a jukebox, he says in a quote that we're getting to later. And then he, that's the sort of thing he does. He kind of really plays on, that's his song, and that's his... so he's not afraid to milk the music to his own advantage, just doesn't want to play it as it was recorded. He just doesn't want to play it with those guys. Anyway, I don't want to go off on that tangent too deeply. And he says some oddball things this week. Remember last week it's never happening. What are the chances? 0. This week he's saying, I wouldn't rule anything. Oh, Robert, listen to your manager. Just say no. Just tell people it's not on. If you change your mind, then you can tell people you're changing your mind. But don't do this monkey around thing. Listen to your new manager, assuming that's who told you in the first place to say that. The answer is no. If the answer changes, then you can let people know that the answer has changed. And then when they ask, you can say, well, look, I changed my mind. He references the Eagles' Hell Freezes Over tour and the fact that they had said they'd play together when Hell Freezes Over, then they played together. People get. He wouldn't be the first to do it, so but people get that minds get changed, that circumstances change, that certain gigs become so important that, what the hell, me and John Paul Jones are already in Glastonbury. If Jimmy wants to show up, we'll play together. You know what I mean? So just, I would rather just say no. But anyway, we're going to get to all those quotes. There was quite an interview, I guess, in this month's Rolling Stone. Maybe next week's, I'm not sure which one it is. It's going to be some some digging to find it. But anyway, if you ever see the cover, then it's easy to find, but it can be hard to dig through and find out what's going on in there. Okay. Jimmy Page is he's on the Tonight Show Monday. He is the musical guest, quote unquote, which usually means playing. That's interesting. That's maybe the most interesting thing this week. If Jimmy pulls out a guitar in the Tonight Show and plays a song with the band there or with whoever, that is by far the most interesting story of the week. That is by far more interesting than they released a Whole Lot of Love version that you maybe haven't heard before, but it's still at the end of the day a whole lot of love. By far more interesting than Robert Plant played soccer, or by far more interesting than Robert Plant sang a Led Zeppelin song with his new band while saying he'll never sing Led Zeppelin songs. That would be something really interesting. And he has talked in his interviews about he wants to get out and play, that he's got some new music, he wants to play it and stuff. So watch for Monday night on The Tonight Show. The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon. It's on at 11:30. Listen, I'm working to 11:18. I'm not home till after 12, and I don't actually have TV. So I'm going to have to try and find it on the internet when I get home, sort of thing. So listen, do me a favor. If you're out there, if you're sitting up to watch it, Twitter, Ramble On Blog on Twitter, at Ramble On Blog. Message me. What did Jimmy do? What did Jimmy say? Give me some quotes. If he played a song, I want to know about it. Because really, if he came out and said, "Oh, yeah, nice to see you all," waves and walks off, then I could save myself the trouble of digging it up. But if he actually plays something, that is big, big, big news. And I'm going to be coming home from work I'm going to be coming out of home from work to race about a story. By the way, if you go to rambleonradio.com to pick up on all these stories I'm talking about this week, again, it's been that kind of week. I'm way behind on my stories. But I do recommend on Twitter, Led Zeppelin News. I have two computers in front of me, and I just tried to touch my MacBook to bring up my Twitter and instead of my iPad, and oh boy, I'm confused all of a sudden. It is at Led Zepp News. At Led Zepp News. Led Zeppelin News. He is so on top of these things. He gets quotes. He gets stories. He's faster than anybody on the stories. Fella's name is James. James Cook. He's really, really sensational at grabbing stories off the internet and getting them to Twitter right away. And the thing that Twitter does really well, there's a lot of people who think Twitter's just for twits, and Twitter's a silly thing, and let's be honest, if you're a politician and you're on Twitter, you're looking for trouble is what you're doing. There's nothing... I once got stopped at the border heading to Buffalo on Good Friday. It was about 3 a.m. We were heading over because the bars are closed in Canada on Good Friday, and we were out of booze. So off we headed. And the border guide said to us, "There's nothing for you but trouble, son. Come on back in the morning. There's nothing for you in Buffalo right now but trouble." And that's, if you're a politician on Twitter, that advice stands. There's nothing for you but trouble. But if you're just trying to push out really fast news and information, you're trying to get on top of things, it's really good for quick turnaround news. It's really good for moving a story in short bits fast. And James Cook is fabulous at it. He's as good as anybody at it. He's a new media whiz. And Led Zepp News, he's got all the stories. He's got it covered until I can get it down there, and then ignore him and go to rambleonradio.com. But it may be a week before I get caught up with all this stuff. Okay. So anyway, yeah, that's Jimmy Monday night, and get a hold of me via Twitter or throw me emails. Let me know what he played, what he didn't play. Somebody out there do that for me. And if you keep an eye on my Twitter, if you're on Twitter, you can keep an eye on my Twitter feed and see if somebody else is, and maybe you can add to what they're saying. Everybody do it publicly, and we can have a conversation about it. Or do it on the Facebook page, same thing. I'll get it right away, and then I'll know what's going on. So, yeah, thanks if you do that. Speaking of Jimmy, how do you feel about this? If 2 years ago you went out and you ordered the Genesis book hardcover. It was in nice photographic paper. It's a collector's edition. I get all that. Beautiful cover. You got to use white gloves to turn the pages because you don't want any acids on the pages. And you spent, what was it, $1,800 for the basic, and then there was it was over $2,500, I think, for the deluxe edition, which meant it was signed by Jimmy, of his autobiography, Jimmy Page by Jimmy Page, a photographic autobiography from Genesis book, is now being released in hardcover, basic hardcover. I just ordered it. It'll be out at the end of this month, I think it was. I think it was May 31st or June, early June. $59, $60. So you just spent $1,600 2 years ago on a book. They now released it for $60. And I know, I'm just getting a hardcover book with pictures. You got a collector's edition, this, that, and that. But really, if you fought with the wife that you had to have this. I'm sorry, honey. I know it's an outrageous sum of money, but this is a one-off, and I really, really, really want this book. And then you got a book that's all, fancy pages and special, but own no other books that are in photographic pages that are that kind of stock, that are that kind of. So it's not like you have a collection. You have one book like that. How do you feel now that it's now available for $59? I know I didn't buy it then. I kind of looked at it. I couldn't do it. I could not spend that kind of money on a book. I couldn't do it. My wife would, and if I pushed it, she wouldn't stop me, but she wouldn't be pleased. And do I want to have that fight? But beyond that, I personally couldn't do it. I just couldn't bite that bullet. And I looked at it at the time, and I kind of hummed and hawed. I'd really love to have this book. Now I'm going to have this book, and I'm going to get to see all the pictures. To me, it's all about seeing the pictures. And frankly, I'll look at the pictures more than you would if you bought the big one, because, matter of fact, if you spent $1,600 on it, I'd love to know. Are you going to buy the $59 book so you have one you can stuff on your shelf, pull out and look at periodically? But anyway, the book, it's available on Amazon now for pre-order. Jimmy Page by Jimmy Page, the autobiography from Genesis. It's a photographic, it's 480 pictures. Some pictures never been seen anywhere else. And it's now going to be made available on hardback. And I will put a link to that on the page. So if you're going to link, go to the page. There's some Amazon links on the side. Click on one of those, then search it. Doesn't cost you any extra to order it that way if you're planning on ordering it. But it drops a few pennies my way. It's an easy way to support the show. I may be able to afford to have a cup of tea while I do the show next week with a few pennies. Yeah, no, I just forgot to make a cup of tea this week. Robert Plant has signed a contract. We now know a little more about his upcoming album. He said on stage in New Orleans it's going to be released on September 8th. And it's going to be on None Such Records. He has signed a deal with them, and it's Sensational Space Shifters. Strange to say, yeah, Sensational Space Shifters. I get the bands confused in my head now. And it's going to be released, and there's some special guests on it. But we know not much about it else other than that. As it gets closer to September, as the summer comes up, we'll hear more, and I'll let you know as I hear things. And I will be in touch with None Such to try and get an advance copy. And I will do what I always do in these situations. I will beg and plead for a few audio clips that I can play on this podcast, and they will ignore that completely. The answer is no, but I will ask. John Paul Jones will be playing the Glastonbury Festival with C6 Steve this August, I believe. The Glastonbury Festival. It's the biggest festival in Britain. It's a huge festival. And is Robert playing there this year? I think Robert's playing there too. So that's Robert, John Paul Jones, both playing Glastonbury Festival. They may be at different stages on different days. I mean, their paths may not cross. But there you go. There's two. So, Jimmy, how far is Glastonbury from your house? Come on. I bet you Ross would drive you. I bet you Ross is going to shoot the show. he'll drive you. So Jimmy, just go. Just go. Just hunt around, find John Paul Jones, and then say, come on, let's go play with Robert. And, walk out on the stage and see if he says no. It's done. It's done. The latest edition of Guitar Magazine also has, so there's going to be another interview I'll be talking about the next couple of weeks, has Jimmy on the cover. It'll be more of a guitar-centric. And it has, if you're into this, the guitar tab, for how many more times, I think is what it was. In the same vein, interestingly, I mentioned I'm going to see Get the Lead Out Saturday night. Paul Hammond, the guitar whiz in Get the Lead Out, he's one of 2 guitar players in the band, but he's a technician. He aims for this sound on this song, and he shows me his pedal board. He's got the 10 guitars, and he shows me his pedal board, and this song, I use this on this sound, and it's like he's got all sorts of different settings, and it's all set up for the settings. The other guitar player, Jimmy's more of a guts it out player. He sounds like X, and then he plays the songs. And he is, he just kind of has a fuzz and a wah-wah and a few other, but no real bang-off effects. He doesn't try and get specific sounds so much as he has a sound he likes and he rolls it. And what happens is it makes them a very interesting band because they kind of have 2 different, Jimmy will change guitars around, actually. Jimmy Marciano's his name. He will change guitars around to get a different sound, whereas Paul does that, but then he narrows in for that one specific sound, that one specific song. And it is a kind of a perfectionism about them that makes them excellent. Anyway, he is being featured in Guitar Player Magazine. This is interesting because he is a guitar player in a tribute band. He's not a guy with a record contract, and he's not one of those guys. He's a guy in a tribute band. And the guitar magazines don't feature those guys that often. It tells you how good Paul is, how respected he is in the guitar community, that he would be in Guitar Player Magazine. And somebody was guessing on Facebook that he may be the first, although he seems to think there was an AC/DC tribute band where the guitar player was featured in Guitar Player Magazine. But he may be the first tribute band guitar player to be featured in Guitar Player Magazine. Guitar Player Magazine is the granddaddy of guitar magazines. If you don't know this, when I was 14, I had a subscription to this. And actually, if you go to their online, on the iPad, you can get the app and you can do the magazines and buy the magazines. And they have a bunch of free ones, and it's basically old interviews. And there's about 8 or 10 of those, and I've downloaded all those. And so they've pieced it together as kind of a short magazine, but it's really old interviews from way back in the day. And I have been digging, rereading interviews that I read when I was 14 to 18 sort of thing, when I had a subscription to this magazine. Pat Travers and Pat Thrall one recently. Pat Thrall, by the way, did play, to connect with Led Zeppelin, did play with Glenn Hughes in Hall, Hughes Thrall, I think the band was called. But anyway, so it's kind of neat that Paul's being in Guitar Player Magazine. Jimmy is in Guitar Magazine, just Guitar it's called. And he's on the cover, so look for that. I'm going to move on to Jason. The Led Zeppelin Experience is touring right now. They're touring until next weekend. I was hoping to see them at Casino Rama. I've contacted James, the singer, James Dillon, and apparently there is no passes being handed out. And the shows, I kind of was banking on that way. The shows are almost sold out. There's nothing that kind of like back row. And I was actually taking my sister-in-law, it was her birthday. So I have to contact her this weekend and see if she wants to sit in the back row. I'll splurge on the tickets. What the hell? But they're only $35 in the back row, so it's not a big deal that way. But so I don't know. I was actually thinking I might go to Windsor because I'm off the Friday. It's a long weekend here, and I actually have the Friday off. I was thinking I might go to Windsor for the Windsor show, and then the next night at Casino Ram, I'd do a double nights, and then I'd have something to talk about here. Maybe get some, if you get backstage, get the guys on some sort of recording a little bit. Talk to them briefly, if not, and piece something together. That's not going to happen. Whether I see them or not, I don't even know. but anyway, that's the story there. I don't know if I'm going to end up hooking up with. We're trying to arrange a hookup with James. At least that we'll do lunch or something. But we'll see how it goes. But I may not have much of anything on Jason Bonham's Led Zeppelin Experience tour this time out. However, California Breed, and next week I'm going to be reviewing the California Breed album, assuming Robert Plant doesn't do an interview saying that, I don't know, I don't know, or I don't know, assuming Jimmy doesn't debut a brand new band on Monday night on the Tonight Show, and this is my new band, and they play 3 songs. I might not care about California Breed next week if that happens. Or if, Robert says, oh, yeah, no, we just can't talk Jason into it. Otherwise, we're actually ready to go. Then I might talk about that. But otherwise, it'll be a California Breed day. I'll be doing reviewing their album. I've had their album a couple of weeks now, and I actually got it way earlier than I think I like to get it for reviewing. It's released in about 2 weeks. Week and a half, I think, and something like the 22nd or some odd like that. And the problem is, you sit on it too long. I'm kind of thinking I don't want to do it a month early. I kind of want to be close to. And I think it's been released in Japan now, and they've got it streaming somewhere. So I'm actually fell behind on it, just because I wanted to kind of try and time it in. And I did request an interview with somebody. And that doesn't look like, I have not heard back on that, other than they said we'll pass that request along. The PR firm said they passed the request along to their management, basically. But I've not heard anything back, so now I'm assuming that's not going to happen. But you kind of don't want to, I don't want to run out and review it and then, spend an episode reviewing it, and then I get an interview a week later. I'm kind of trying to hold back, and now I'm falling a bit behind. It's one of those dumb, it's a timing thing, and sometimes the timing works beautifully on these things, and sometimes it doesn't. But anyway, next week will be the week to review it. It's the ideal week for it, I think. That's what's going to happen. Okay, so Rolling Stone has both Jimmy and Robert, chats with both Jimmy and Robert, and there's online, there has been 2 different link-ups, kind of write-ups on the interview. Apparently, it's a full, long interview. Haven't had a chance to see that yet. But I'm going to run through some quotes. And it's not in order of their interviews. It's not in order of anything. I just pulled them out randomly. And we're going to start with some Robert quotes. Either Robert quotes or things how the article says. Quotes from the article about Robert or about what Robert said. Okay? So Robert, a tour would have been an absolute menagerie on a tour, right? A vested interest in the very essence of everything that's shitty about big-time stadium rock. We were surrounded by a circus of people that would have had our souls on the fire. I'm not part of a jukebox. Now, the I'm not part of a jukebox bit of the quote is a bit troublesome. And I've had a couple of people on Twitter kind of contact me and say, oh, come on. We've seen the New Orleans show. He played 4 Led Zeppelin songs or 5 Led Zeppelin songs on that 1-hour broadcast, and he played In the Mood. Don't give me this, I'm not part of a jukebox crap. Take that out, though, and that's a lot of what I've been saying for a long time. He talks about the menagerie of vested interest and the very essence of everything that's shitty. In other words, the Zeppelin machine got wound up. And I'm going to... See, I said I wasn't going to do this, but I'm going to jump around now. Here's what Jimmy says. At the time of the O2 show, we were led to believe there were going to be more. You'll have to ask Robert why he changed his mind. I don't know if he even considered it. I don't know what he thinks, which is a great line. I don't know what he thinks. I don't think Robert knows what he thinks. I honestly don't. And I don't mean that as a slam or a slap. I don't think Robert knows what he thinks. I think Robert is goes with the flow, and today he's in this mood and tomorrow he's in that mood. And we sometimes as fans have a hard time getting our heads around it. But I think that's all it is. But yeah, he's talking about that. And I've talked a number of times about it. I think this is what happened. Because I heard I was hearing, and I was, at the time I had just started this blog, I was a nobody. Now I kind of, I've made some contacts with some people, nobody in the inner circle, but people on the next level of hell, as it were. Oh no, it's Led Zeppelin, not Dante, sorry. But, I hear things once in a while now. But even then, I had heard that the T-shirts, for instance, were in production. That at Madison Square Gardens, somebody, and this was the quote, somebody had put a hold on 16 nights at Madison Square Gardens. And then the other side of that was, well, name a band that could hold 16 nights at Madison Square Gardens. So there was stuff like that floating around. It was suggested that it was starting. And then it just stopped dead. And my view for a long time has been that it started, the Led Zeppelin machine started. Everything that goes on around that sort of thing started. And Robert had, his mind went back to 1977 when his son died, and the machine was out of control. Or, when the machine started rolling up for 1980 and John Bonham died, and those kind of scars on, those are scars on Robert Plant. And he's kind of hinted at this at other times, said different stuff like that. But, and I read a quote this week where he talks about his son dying. He says, it's something you never get over. It changes you fundamentally. And I do think that when the machine got rolling, it just took him back to that time. And I think, so if you throw out the "I'm not part of a jukebox," that's an interesting quote. The "I'm not part of a jukebox" is him being flippant, and it's one of his problems when it comes to these sorts of quotes, is he tends to throw that flippant thing in, and that's where everybody gets touchy, or that's when people misunderstand. Anyway, it says in the article, nearly all of Plant's peers are happy to deal with Circus considering the insane financial rewards. Good luck to them, he sneers. I hope they're having a real riveting and wonderful late middle age. Somehow I don't think they are. And that tells you something about him too, that he's enjoying what he's doing. And I can't imagine enjoying, the Rolling Stones supposedly take different limos to the shows, right? That's how little they actually talk to each other. They won't even sit in the same car together. And he's going to say, I can see not wanting to travel with people, like not wanting to work with people. That you just don't want to spend time with like that. However, and here we go. Remember last week it was, no, never. What's the chances of Led Zeppelin again? 0. Plant refuses to rule out the possibility of him fronting Zeppelin again. I don't think there's any reason for me to do that, he says. Otherwise, we've got nothing to be mystic about. Everything will develop as it develops. All doors are open. All phone lines are open. I don't hear from anybody. Talk is cheap, but I just think everything has to be new. Then you can incorporate history. Well, they were doing new material, by the way. And Jimmy says so. Jimmy says, the material we were coming up with was really, really good. Obviously, other people wanted us to get out the road quickly. I wasn't feeling comfortable going out with the 3 members from the O2 show, and another singer might have looked like trying to jam a square peg into a round hole. I wanted to see what we could come up with musically. But material we were coming up with was really, really good. And on that, Plant says they kept rehearsing after the O2, and they had a singer. I don't know what happened. It seemed like a great idea to me. So, Plant thought they probably should go out. Why not? And as time goes on, I'm not so sure. And at the time, I was, I don't want to see Led Zeppelin without no Led Zeppelin without Robert Plant. As time's gone on, my tune has changed tonight. Just go out, just do it. Like the Stones go out with like an 8-9 piece band. The Who go out with an 8-9 piece band. They have a keyboard player and a horn section. And why not go out with 4 or 5 singers, 3, 4, 5 singers? Not backup singers, like the Stones have their 3 backup singers, and then they bring out, what's his name, who played guitar with them in the early 70s, and do 1 or 2 songs. But why not? Why not have Joss Stone on tour with you? And she could do 3 or 4 songs with you. and you could do a couple of them instrumentally, and you could have, that Alter Bridge guy, Miles, what's his name, Kennedy, come out and do 3 or 4 songs. It doesn't have to be all Miles Kennedy, and they could have, with the amount of money they're talking about, they could have had half a dozen singers share the show, and then you're not just being cheap Led Zeppelin, you're doing something interesting and different. And the new music, whoever sang the new music could have been the guy. So it was doable, and as time goes on, I wonder, I think maybe that was a mistake not doing it. I do. It's a bit like, look at the Page Plant stuff without John Paul Jones, and it worked very well. I think it could have worked along the same line if handled well, if handled carefully. Anyway, so Plant stands up to leave, but turns on his heel. Do you know why the Eagles said they'd reunite when Hell Freezes Over? But they did. Do you know why the Eagles said they'd reunite when Hell Freezes Over, but they did it anyway and keep touring? He asked. It's not because they were paid a fortune. It's not about the money. It's because they're bored. I'm not bored. I'll buy that. I'll buy part A of that. I'll buy part B. He's not bored. He's enjoying himself. Why go do this? I get that. I really do. But boy, I think you're really missing the boat on the Eagles. Sorry, pal. I don't think it's because they're bored. I think it was the money. I think so much money was put in front of them. They said, I'm going to do this. I think that's who they are. That may not be who Robert Plant is. I think that's who the Eagles are. So anyway. And this one came from another interview. I didn't see the whole interview. I just got it from Led Zeppelin News. It's Robert Plant on whether he's available to reform Led Zeppelin. This is really interesting. I was, but sadly I'm committed again now. That implies that, remember when he said I had nothing going on for 2014? That implies he was not kidding. That he actually would have done this. But look, if you're John Paul Jones, do you drop everything for Robert Plant again? If you're Jimmy, do you look over and go, look, I'm not falling for this again. Who am I, Charlie Brown? Come on, Lucy. I'm not kicking your football. And all the Europeans are going, huh? What did he just say? But really, I would want more than just a kind of a flippant remark in an interview before I picked up the phone and called Robert, if I was those guys. But anyway. Now this is back to Jimmy. On the remasters, he says he was pretty diligent with the detection work. I didn't want to put together a compilation where 90% of it has been bootlegged. I asked the guy, I love this, I asked the guy who runs one of the fanzines if he's heard any of this material before. He told me he hadn't. That was a really good feeling. That's got to be our man Dave Lewis. I almost want to have Dave back on just so I can ask him if that was him. But that's so friend of the show, Dave Lewis, being asked by Jimmy Page for his opinion. That's on Zeppelin 4, the Zeppelin 4 remasters. Will it feature unheard recordings from the Stairway to Heaven sessions? Page just smiles and offers one word: absolutely. And then he talks about, this took a lot of time, and I don't want to start proposing another project because it will take me another 6 months or a year. I'd rather spend time practicing my guitar and going out to play. And there was another quote from another one where he says, from another interview, where he says he has new material ready to go and he wants, now we've heard this before, and he wants to play. So again, this is why Monday is interesting, because if this is done, this is wrapped, apparently all the new songs are chosen. All the remasters are ready to go. It's just putting together the little bits and stuff. But all the songs are done and picked, ready, done. So is he going to drop a new band out there? Is he going to do something different and new? I'm not banking on that, by the way, but I don't think it's impossible at this stage. He has been talking about new music for a number of years. He is talking about new music again. And like you say, he doesn't want to do anything more. He'd rather spend his time practicing and going out to play. So maybe he's been doing that for the last couple of months. Maybe he's got something up his sleeve. Let's hope. Cross your fingers, eh? And look, let's face it, with all the fuss about the remasters, if you're going to go and do something new, now's a good time. Now it'll get a lot of airplay that it won't maybe get in four years' time, or wouldn't have got 3 years ago, you know? And on Robert talking about his involvement with this project, he basically said, he's been kept up to date on it. He's been aware of it. He's been in there in terms of he knows what's been going on. He's not been out of the loop, but there are only so many hours in the day, and it takes a lot. It's very time consuming. So that's Robert has not been directly involved, I gather, in the remasters. And finally, on the 1969 Paris show, that's part of the first album deluxe edition. Apparently, Jimmy came across a bootleg of the show in Japan at a Japanese record store. After hearing it, he scoured the planets for the original tapes. In other words, he heard it, he caught the bootleg, he heard it, and went, I love this. This is the one. So that's why we're getting that 69 Paris show. And that is it. That is... that's as up to date as I am on all this stuff. What have we been at? 46 minutes, 45 minutes we've been going on here. It really is so much stuff, and I know I've missed stuff. So if I missed one of your favorite stories of the last week, sorry about it. And like I said before, on Monday night, if you're watching the Tonight Show, keep me up to date on what's going on. On Twitter's the best. Twitter's the best. Facebook's second best. And that's it for Ramble On Radio, episode number 58. Check rambleonradio.com for notes on this week's podcast, Led Zeppelin news and reviews, any links mentioned in today's podcast. Follow Ramble On Radio on Facebook, Google+, and at Ramble On Blog on Twitter. You can subscribe to Ramble On Radio through iTunes. And if you do, leave a review, give us a rating and leave a review and do all that stuff. Listen on Spreaker and be sure to follow me. If I can get like 100 followers on Spreaker, I can subscribe to, go for iHeartRadio. Now I did put the show forward for iHeartRadio, which puts it in front of thousands of people. That's Clear Channel's website. And it puts it in front of thousands of people. But one of the things they look for is a lot of likes on Spreaker, and 100 seems to be the magic number. Now, they say that's not there's other ways and there's other stuff they look for. Like I say, I put it forward once and I got nothing back on that subject. So if you go to Spreaker, follow me. And then, if I get it up around 80 to 100, I can go to iHeartRadio again, and we can try and get the show in front of more people. But that is it. Thanks for listening to Ramble On Radio. This has been episode number 58. Next week, 59, is going to be California Breed, unless something really big breaks in the next 7 days. California Breed, review of the first CD. And here's a hint. It's pretty good. Have a good night. I will see you next week.
If I listen to it now, I go, whoa. Oh, I know it's a bit trust me, Jimmy Page. Switch off the internet.
I guess not, when you're moving around as much as he is and doing, he's still active, and you got to like that. But like I say, there is. In all seriousness, I'm not sure whether I'm doing today's podcast because I have so much to say about everything that's happened in the last week, or because I have to say it now before I get farther behind. There's just so much, and I have missed so much of it. So let's get straight at it. Let's just talk. First off, I was a week off, or maybe we should put it this way. Whole Lot of Love, the remix with vocals, was released on Zeppelin time. I said it would be 2 weeks after the communication breakdown, Good Times, Bad Times from the Paris show. That was what I had heard. I had said it would be 2 weeks after. It was 3 weeks after. So it was 2 weeks Led Zeppelin time is what happened. But yeah, it's now out there. On Monday, it hit The Guardian. which the same thing happened with the communication breakdown. And the Guardian newspaper had it on their website. A few other English sites had it. People were posting it online, and all of us in America and Canada were going, "I can't read it." And finally, one turned up where you could actually hear it. And then the next day it was available for sale, $1.29 on iTunes, Amazon, Spotify. If you're not Canadian, you can listen to it, stream it on Spotify. And I'm telling you, Spotify's in trouble. If I ever get that submarine broken free from that ice back there, first place I'm going, Spotify World Headquarters, and we're going to talk about this non-Canadian issue. Because Spotify is not, they're like worldwide, but not in Canada. I say what ho, this is Brian, call me the New Orleans Queen who sure knows how to schmooze it, Gardner, coming to you from Ramble On Tower's Dungeon Studio in scenic Hespeler, Ontario. And you are listening to Ramble On Radio episode number 58. Ramble On Radio is the only dedicated Led Zeppelin podcast on this or any other known internets. Be sure to go to rambleonradio.com for all your Led Zeppelin news and any links I mentioned during the show. You can subscribe to Ramble On Radio through iTunes. If you're on iTunes, if you go to iTunes, leave a review, give us a rating and a review. It kind of moves you. The more you get, it kind of moves you up the search lists. You can listen on Spreaker. That's speaker with an R, Spreaker. My dad has been here all week. We've had my dad visiting with us. And we're selling his house, and it's gone next week. So we've been spending a lot of time cleaning out the last of his stuff and doing all that. And even Saturday, I'm up at 4:30. I'm going to be going to work for 4 hours. At 10:30, I will go to his house. We will finish cleaning out the last of the furniture and stuff. And then my brother and I are driving to Buffalo to see Get the Lead Out. So, there's no rest on a Saturday. Thank God for government construction. They're ripping apart a bridge down part where I live, and the highway, the 401 is going to be closed going past our house. I won't be able to go anywhere Sunday, so that's everybody's out of luck if they want my time. But anyway, that's my way of saying, boy, we have a lot of stuff this week. And you heard it, the intro. I'm in the mood for a melody, like Robert Plant. I'm in the mood for a melody. But here's a question. If you're Jimmy Page, did you watch? That was from Robert Plant's New Orleans show. It was on one of the American stations. You can now watch it on YouTube, which is where I recorded that little bit of I'm in the mood from. And if you're Jimmy Page, did you sit back, watch it, put your feet up, and then go, wait a minute. How come Robbie Blunt's guitar parts get played as the record, but my songs sound like nothing? How come Whole Lotta Love sounds like this whole other song, but Robbie Blunt gets the note-for-note treatment? And the answer is, I don't know. It is an oddity that I'm in the Mood seems to be the only sacred song in the Robert Plant catalog in terms of how it must be played. Oh, no, you got to play those notes. But Whole Lotta Love, nobody will notice. Who care? Black Dog, nobody knows that lick. No. Calm. And if you do, be sure to follow Ramble On Radio. Well, just follow me. It's Ramble On Radio. You can search for that, or I Am Brian Dammit. And also check out I Am Brian Dammit on YouTube. You can listen to the podcast there, although I fooled a while back with video on the podcast, and rolling that way and putting it on YouTube, and it didn't, it was just way too much work, and it's outside of the things that I know how to do well, so it became a frustration really fast. So it is there. The Spreaker uploads it automatically if you're at work and you just want to throw it on YouTube, but you can go that way too. You can follow me, Ramble On Radio, on Facebook. We have a page, Google+, and at Ramble On Blog on Twitter. And I do try to respond to stuff on Facebook and Twitter. Although I have a full-time job that has lots of overtime, and I have a busy family life, and getting busier some days it seems. So I'm not always quick, or I'm not always good about getting back, but I try, and I do read it all, and I do appreciate all your comments. If I don't get back to you, it's just a case of it is just what it is. It's not that I don't appreciate it, or that I'm hopefully it's not that I'm being thoughtless. It's things get ahead of me sometimes. This week, everything got ahead of me. You would not believe this week is like, oh, good Lord. We're doing new carpet upstairs. So we're ripping apart, half the house at a time, new carpet in. That's one night. The next night you put it all back. Then the next night you rip out the other half of the house, which we did tonight. And then you put it all back. Meanwhile, all this stuff is rolling down the pike. This Led Plus, just play any old thing. I'll sing. It's good. So, I don't know. I don't. Robbie done. I guess Robbie's in the good books this week. But anyway, it's actually a good show. It was a good watch. Not that I haven't actually seen all of it. I've been making dinner and watching it. Kind of have it on while I'm making dinner over in the corner there. And the last, today, I got about 40 minutes through the hour of it. So it's a good little show. He's sounding good. He's in good voice. He is singing a little more rocky than he has in the past. That'll die again. There's been a number of interviews, and I've only, I've seen a few. I've missed a few. But I've picked up some quotes here and there, and apparently one he talks about he's looking at doing something with Alison Krauss again. So there goes that rock stuff. I guess it's back to whispering and what have you. We have a quote later where he talks about he doesn't. The Eagles do what they did, or whatever it was, did the whole hell freezes over thing because they're bored. That's not for the money. They're bored musically, and he says, "I'm not bored." I got news for Robert Plant. That's really naive. Don Henley does it for the money. Never mind. Don Henley had a good little solo career going. He did it for the money and for no other reason. Glenn Frey did it because nobody gave a rat's ass about Glenn Frey. Without the Eagles at the end of the day. But anyway, Robert says he's not bored. And